Welcome to our online protection plan training video. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a quick thank you for being here and taking the time to watch this video. It shows me that you value the safety of kids and you recognize the importance of being trained as a volunteer whose responsibility is to keep kids safe here at the Park Church. So once again, thanks for taking the time to watch this. At the Park Church, we want to create safe and fun environments where kids can grow and build their relationship with Jesus. And that is a huge value of mine. I say that all the time. We just want this to be a safe and fun place where kids can discover who Jesus is and deepen their relationship with him. And so this training plays one of the biggest parts in making our environment safe. And so thank you for making it a priority. We want our congregation, our families, and all of Shore Park to know that the Park Church is a safe place for their kids and for their youth to be. We take the safety of our kids very seriously, and my hope is that that is evident as parents and as visitors walk through this building, that they can rest knowing that their kids and youth are in good hands. While this training is about the safety of kids, it is also about the safety as a volunteer. We have these safeguards in place to not only protect kids, but to also protect you as the volunteer. We secure our homes, we secure our phones, our vehicles, our computers, our passwords, our bank accounts. We deal with security and safety issues every day in our lives, and we want to have that same level of security when it comes to our kids that are entrusted into our care here at the Park Church. In addition to that, it is also our legal responsibility to make sure church is a safe place for kids to be. And insurance companies also require this same level of diligence to provide financial coverage for the church. You might be asking yourself, why do we have to do this training every year? Well, again, we take the safety of our kids very seriously, and we tend to get slack with these policies and procedures, myself included. And so this training is just a yearly reminder of how important it is that we do these things to keep our kids safe. I just have to disclose this, but you might be familiar with the term Plan to Protect. This isn't a Plan to Protect training. The Park Church has its own customized protection policy that follows similar principles as you would find in Plan to Protect, but some of what you might hear is different from what you've heard from another church, and that's why. This is also just the bare bones of our policy. We want to respect your time, and so we're just going to cover the most important things that I think you need to know for Sunday mornings and Tuesday nights serving as a kids volunteer. So who needs protection? Obviously, today we're focusing on kids, and that refers to minors, anyone between the age of 0 and 18, really, so kids and youth. But there are lots of people who need protection. Vulnerable adults, like our seniors, those with disabilities, our volunteers and staff also need to be protected. And lastly, the church needs protection as the institution that represents Christ and his gospel. We know from reading scripture that children have a very special place in Jesus' heart. He compares those who have faith like a child to be the greatest in the kingdom, and he sternly warns about the importance of protecting kids. As some of the most lowly, vulnerable, and dependent people in our society, Jesus highlights how important children are to him. And so we have a huge spiritual responsibility as well. Consider this. If children are abused outside the church, they question the existence of God. If children are abused within the church, this becomes their view of God. This means that as adults who point kids to Christ, as adults and as youth, because some of you may be youth yourself watching this video. So as volunteers who point kids to Christ, we have to recognize this influence that we have in shaping their understanding and view of who God is. We have the amazing ability to reflect the genuine character and love of Christ, which is such an honor. However, if this power is abused, we risk damaging the way children in our care view Christ. And churches are not immune. Unfortunately, abuse has happened in churches, and so we must take the influence we have very seriously. Camps, schools, clubs, and churches can be vulnerable places because they are natural places of trust for kids, often lacking the necessary screening for volunteers and staff, and that provides an opportunity for abusers to come in contact with the vulnerable and with kids. For this reason, it is essential that churches develop clear policies and procedures that will serve to protect those who work with them and the program as a whole. The Park Church understands that our responsibility for the care and safety of the vulnerable is at the forefront of who we are as a church. And so here are some of the standards we currently try to maintain to ensure that we are operating in a way that minimizes the risk of any form of abuse happening within our church family. And so number one, we have a written customized policy, and it's customized to the realities we face in our own church. And if you ever have any questions about the policy, a hard copy could be made available to you, but everything we discuss in this video is in line with what's in our policy. We screen all staff and volunteers, which includes checking references and doing police information checks. We train our volunteers and staff. Volunteers sign a ministry covenant when you guys sign the volunteer application form, agreeing to comply with the Park Church's policies and guidelines. We have a 2 adult rule, and so we've adopted this basic 2 adult rule, which states that 2 adults should always be present during any children's or youth activity, and this rule just reduces the risk of any child abuse and also reduces the risk of false accusations. We modify our premises, and so for years now, there's been great lengths to make sure our premises is safe, and some of the things that have been done are like video cameras within the whole building, making sure that we have windows in all of our doors, making sure that the preschool room, half of the door always remains open, and just making sure that there's no obstructed areas within our children's ministry. From an administration standpoint, we keep our documentation and records indefinitely, things like child registration forms, attendance, waiver forms. And lastly, we implement reporting and response protocols. Okay, we are moving on to our protection plan portion of this training, and these are going to be the most important things for you to know and the hows of how we can protect kids in our care and how we can stop abuse and false accusations from happening. And so, number one, we have a recruitment and screening process. Like I said before, we screen all of our volunteers and staff, and this is a little bit about what that looks like. And so, church leadership and ministry program leads are to determine if individuals are suitable to work within kids ministry. And volunteers are to submit to the recruitment and screening process managed by ministry leads like myself, and individuals must submit and complete the following. So a ministry application form, reference checks, a police information check if you're over the age of 18, an interview with myself or a ministry lead, training like this one, and then final approval from church leadership. There's also a 6-month waiting period from the time a person starts attending the church. And so this is a suggestion for individuals wanting to serve within kids ministry. Exceptions obviously can be made in circumstances where the ministry volunteers have transferred from another church in which they've been longtime members in the children's ministry and are in good standing. Obviously, with this sort of exception, reference checks will be needed, especially from 3 individuals, including one from their lead pastor and one from their children's pastor. And so we try our very best to ensure that volunteers complete the recruitment and screening process prior to being placed in a position of trust with kids. And ministry personnel who serve with children and youth must have a file kept with all these records, and I do that, and all of these files are to be kept permanently. So at the Park Church, we naturally have some activities or programs or events that are higher risk, or we have some age groups that are at higher risk, or we even have some rooms or areas in our facility in our church that are higher risk. And so I want to talk about reducing the risk, and there are 4 principles of good supervision. Number one, as risk increases, supervision should also increase. And so an example of this is like off-site trips, if we're walking across the street to use one of the fields, or physical activities, those sorts of things. When there is more risk, we need more supervision. We need more people present. Number two, risk increases as isolation increases. And so if we are alone, there is more risk. So we need more supervision. And we can reduce this by remaining in larger groups during our events with multiple leaders present. This also means never being alone in a car with a student or like private messaging them on social media. We should always avoid isolation. Number three, risk increases as accountability decreases. We need to be accountable to each other. And we do this by filling out incident reports when things go wrong, or just informing ministry leads when we notice something out of the ordinary with a child. And we also increase accountability through having hall monitors, like our ushers that check in periodically, and informing parents of the risk associated with all of our activities. Number four, risk increases when there's an imbalance of power, authority, influence, and control between a potential abuser and a potential victim. And so we can reduce this by working again in larger teams with 2 leaders or more, and by telling ministry leads if you notice an imbalance of power within a group, or maybe with between a leader and a child, it's important that we hold each other accountable and give the kids and youth in our church family a voice. And then on the bottom here, it just says, maintaining good documentation is the best demonstration of due diligence. And so if we were ever to appear in the court of law, we have to demonstrate that we did everything as a church to protect our kids. And so we have to document everything. And more specifically, we have parents sign registration forms and letters of consent when we communicate the associated risks with each activity that we do. And another example of this, like I said, is incident report forms. That helps us be accountable with things that happen in our programs. And we have to take attendance every time we meet, and we keep that attendance on file indefinitely. And so this is why checking in is so important. And I usually check you in as a volunteer on a Sunday morning, but if you are checking in your kids anyways, or passing by the computer on your way to the room that you're serving in, please go on the computer and you can actually check in as a volunteer. I do this anyways for you if you forget, but it'd be a great help if you did this on the computer yourself. So we are going to talk about teacher and student ratios, or volunteer and kid ratios. And so the recommended volunteer to kid ratio here at the Park Church are as follows. So we have 1 ministry volunteer who's an adult with a junior leader for every 3 to 6 infants. If a situation happens where 1 ministry volunteer is in the room who's an adult, they can watch 4 children as long as the door is opened and a hall monitor checks in periodically. Number 2, we have 1 ministry volunteer who's an adult with a junior leader for every 4 to 8 toddlers or preschoolers. Again, if a situation arises where only 1 ministry volunteer in the room, who's an adult, can watch the 4 to 8 children with the door remained open and then a designated hall monitor checking in periodically. And then lastly, we have a ministry volunteer who's an adult with a junior leader for every 7 to 15 elementary age kids. Again, if a situation arises where there's only 1 ministry volunteer who's an adult in the room, they can watch 7 to 10 children, again with the door open and a designated hall monitor checking in periodically. And so it is a minimum that the following staffing be in each classroom. A minimum of 2 unrelated ministry volunteers are to be present for supervision. If 2 related ministry volunteers are needed to work together alone, the door must be open and a designated hall monitor will check in regularly. And if there is only 1 ministry volunteer present, there must be, again, windows with open and clear visibility, and doors are to remain open at all times with a designated hall monitor checking in periodically. Volunteers who are between the ages of 13 and 17 will be assigned to work alongside another volunteer who's 18 or older. Volunteers must be 18 years of age or older to work alone in a classroom, and it's recommended that there at least be a 5-year age gap between the ministry volunteer and the kids that they serve with. The 2-adult rule is the preferred standard for ministry to children, and so when it is necessary for one adult to be in the room with kids, again, the door just has to be opened and the window policy is required. If you ever feel like the teacher and student ratios are not being met, please see the ministry lead or myself. For the designated department, we want to make sure that the kids and you as a volunteer feel comfortable and safe in the environment that you are serving in. Occasional observers, and this is just a fancy word for or a label for parents that come into the classroom who are not a volunteer. And so parents and guardians are obviously welcome to work with us as we minister to their kids, and we want to work with them in the process of raising spiritual champions. With that being said, you just have to make sure as the volunteer that Sunday or Tuesday night that you introduce yourself and get to know them and understand the purpose of why they're there. They cannot be placed in a position of trust with children who are not their own. They can only attend to their own kids. Sometimes they need reminders of this, and so just gently help them understand the why behind it. Attendance of all of these occasional observers should be recorded or noted down. So either write it down on a piece of paper before you leave so I see it when I clean up, or just let me know in person before you leave. It is stated in our policy that parents and guardians are not permitted to be in the nursery unless they are a volunteer and have completed the screening process that the Park Church requires. And so the nursery is the hardest classroom, really, because those kids have the hardest time settling down. And so it's totally understandable when parents want to go in there to settle down their kids or introduce them to a new toy so that they feel comfortable in there. And, we'll totally allow that as long as nursery volunteers are aware of parents going in there and just making sure that they're not in there for extended periods of time. And again, that they're only attending to their own kid. Ministry personnel identification. So it is required that all volunteers wear a name tag that identifies them to the parents, the guardians, the children, and visitors. Everyone should have a personalized volunteer name tag for Sunday morning. And so if you don't, please send me a picture of yourself and I will make it for you. This helps parents know who the screened volunteers and approved volunteers are so they can know that their kids are in good hands. Releasing and receiving children. All children must be checked into Planning Center, which is the check-in system we use prior to attending their programming. This is back to our documentation standard. It's required that we take attendance and keep it on file permanently. And so that's why checking in is so important. For babies to kindergarten children, releasing and receiving these kids should be strongly monitored. That's why we have that security tag that prints out with the kid's name tag. That code matches the code on their name tag to ensure that we are releasing the right kids to the right parents. Children are not to be dropped off in a classroom without volunteers present. And babies and preschool kids should only be released to parents or guardians, not older siblings, unless we are given special permission. Parents and guardians and visitors are not to enter the classroom or the nursery or the preschool classroom when picking up their kids unless requested to do so. So please make parents feel confident while they are checking their kids out. We had an incident where a nursery child was dropped off into the preschool room, and then during the service, the volunteers took the child back to where they were supposed to be in the nursery. But when the parent came, she didn't know that switch happened. And so when she came to pick up her child, she was told that her kid was not present in the room. And she got a little bit upset, obviously, rightfully so. And so we just want to make sure that we are communicating that to the parents or whatever volunteer made that switch. Make sure you're communicating it to the rest of the team present so that they can help make the parents feel confident while they are checking their kids out. For elementary students, so right now that's kindergarten to grade 6, children are to remain in their small group classrooms or in the gym until their parent or guardian or designate comes to pick them up and the kid demonstrates recognition. Also, the security tag is important. We need to get better at doing this, and parents really need to get better at keeping that, but really they see no point in keeping it if we don't have some sort of system. And so as we grow as a church, we are going to be implementing something for a bit more security as they exit the gym now after small groups. We are going to set up kind of a checkout station so that we can scan their security code as they check out. So just be on the lookout for that. We are keeping that in mind to make sure that we are creating secure environments for kids. And so consideration must be given to security, church facilities, and location when determining the age release of older elementary kids. Sometimes kids just want to leave, and I get it. They're tired of waiting. But as a volunteer, you have to ask whether that child knows where to find their parent. And most of the time, they truly have no idea because they haven't seen them since the beginning of the service. And so if the child demonstrates any uncertainty, you have to keep them in the classroom and just explain to them that it's for their safety. Parents and guardians can request that their child be kept in the classroom until they arrive to pick them up, or the opposite. They can request that they just be released. Sometimes the older parents of older kids do that, but a written request needs to be kept on record or on file. Moving on to record keeping. So this is how we keep good documentation. Registration forms are available at every event. I know this is annoying for parents, but it's important and there's a reason behind it. Visiting kids, they have to fill out a child registration form at the check-in counter. We have to have parental permission forms, like waiver forms for all high-risk activities. And no one else should sign it on their behalf, obviously. And there is no statute of limitations on child abuse or incidents. And so therefore we are required to keep these records permanently, which we do. Moving on to washroom guidelines. So no volunteer should ever be alone with a child in the washroom. And doors on all washrooms should be propped open. That's why the washrooms by our fellowship hall are always propped open, because those are the ones that the majority of the kids use on a Sunday morning. And so those are the two main things to keep in mind when talking about washrooms. For our nursery, this hasn't always been how it has been, but diaper changing can only be done by the child's parent or guardian, which honestly, lucky for us, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to be changing any other kid's diaper. So yeah, parent and guardians must change their child's diaper either in the main washrooms, or mothers with newborns can change their children in the mother's room, which is located right beside the nursery there. For toddlers and preschool, so preschool children are never to go to the washroom alone. One ministry volunteer is to stand outside the stall door at all times. And one of the following should always be adhered to when accompanying preschool children to the washroom. 2 ministry volunteers will escort a group of children to the washroom, or 1 ministry volunteer will escort a group of children to the washroom with 1 hall monitor appointed to assist with washroom and security duties. No ministry volunteer will ever be alone with a kid in an unsupervised washroom, and they are never to go into a cubicle with a child and shut the door. When a child needs assistance in the washroom, a ministry volunteer may enter the washroom cubicle to assist, utilizing the following guidelines. You have to, again, make sure that the washroom door is propped open, and the cubicle door is also propped open, and 2 volunteers should always be present when a child does need help. And when you are assisting the kids, just take into consideration the privacy of the child. For elementary children, elementary kids are obviously older, but they are still not to be sent to the washroom alone and should always be accompanied by a buddy or a ministry volunteer. And so ministry volunteers will escort the kids to the washroom and prop the main door open or make sure it's open and everything's in order. Ministry volunteers should remain outside the washroom door and wait for children before escorting them back to the classroom. If they're taking forever, feel free to poke your head in and just tell them to hurry up or stop fooling around, because sometimes that's what's happening. But again, you are never to go into a washroom alone with a child, and you're never to enter a cubicle with a child with the doors shut. Moving on to our health and safety guideline portion of this training, which is one of our last portions. But first thing, if you guys have first aid training, please let me know so that we can put it in your profile in our planning center system. It's good to know who the nurses and the doctors are in our church, just in case there were ever an emergency to happen. So allergies, children and youth having severe allergies will have the information brought to the ministry lead, myself, and noted on their registration form, noted on their planning center profile, and it will appear on their name tag. The information is kept on record, and leaders will always be informed of the allergies that are in the classroom. If you ever have any questions about it, just please let me know. Always know how to administer an EpiPen. And so the church has one, a practice one. EpiPen's website actually has a free kit that you can order yourself if you're ever curious. And so if you ever want to practice with it, please just let me know, and that can be made available to you. Illnesses. A child who is ill and could therefore expose others to the illness are not to be received into any of the kids' classrooms, and some of these symptoms to be considered are fatigue, a fever, coughing, sneezing, a runny nose, pink eyes, obviously physical things like vomiting or diarrhea, children with known contagious illnesses, and volunteers with the same symptoms should also not take part in the class. Even though you are probably desperately needed, please stay home until you feel better. Medication. So ministry volunteers are not to give or apply any medications. The parents are to be contacted and should administer all medications. Medication should not be left in the classroom. So when a situation does happen where a child needs to bring medication, the medication is to be kept in the possession of the ministry lead, and written instructions will be given to you of when that needs to be taken, and that will be kept on file permanently. Sometimes there are extreme cases where kids have to carry their EpiPens or puffers with them, and same thing, parents will be given a form to fill out to write written instructions, and that will be given to the ministry lead or program coordinator. First aid. So in case of a medical emergency, contact the children's pastor or one of the ushers. For minor injury or emergencies, page the parents and inform the parent of what happened or what occurred. First aid kits are kept in all of the kids' classrooms with a label on the outside of the cupboard or drawer that it's in. There's a first aid kit also available in the info center and in the main office. In the case of blood, the following must occur. So please make sure the parent or guardian has been paged, or the ministry lead. Please isolate the child in the area where blood may have fallen and keep the child calm as possible. It's important that you put latex gloves on, or non-latex, gloves on, which are available in the first aid kits, and clean up and bandage the child's injury using the first aid kit, and then clean up any floor or any surfaces where blood may have fallen with a disinfectant wipe. And then we're supposed to dispose of all of that and put it in a garbage bag and seal it right away. In the case that blood falls on the carpets, we just have to put something on top of that area, put a garbage bag over it, and then put maybe a chair or something on top of it, so that kids aren't playing in that area until we can get it cleaned up properly. Incident reports or bump reports. So these are available in all the classrooms in a duotang, and we need to fill out an incident report for any accidents, injuries, illnesses, or indicators of abuse. We have to fill out an incident report for anything out of the ordinary, and we have to include the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And once you fill those out, then parents are then, in some cases, obviously, most of the time, parents are then informed about what happened, and we just give a brief explanation. Off-site trips. So every time there's an off-site trip, we have to increase supervision. So there should be at least one adult volunteer for every 5 kids under the age of 13. And for every off-site trip, a consent form needs to be given to the parent informing them of the trip, and it must be signed in order for the kid to attend the trip. And again, all of these consent forms are kept on file permanently. So, proper displays of affection. Recognizing that children need appropriate displays of affection that reflect pure, genuine, and positive displays of God's love. Appropriate touch with children will be age and developmentally appropriate. And so we encourage you guys to hold a crying preschooler, speak at eye level, put an arm around the shoulder, pat or a hand pat the shoulder or their back to affirm them. Hold the child's hand when speaking or listening or walking to an activity. Gently hold the child's shoulder or hand to keep their attention while you redirect the child's behavior. Put your arm around the shoulder of a child when comforting or quieting is needing. And all touch should be done in the view of others. So while those are appropriate displays of touch, here are some inappropriate displays of touch. And so we have to recognize that the innocence of a child must be protected. And so ministry volunteers will be made aware that the following actions are deemed inappropriate and will not be permitted. And you can see the list on the screen there. Basically engaging in any prolonged physical contact, including hugging, is discouraged. Touching any area covered by a bathing suit, letting kids sit on your lap. I know it's super tempting, especially preschool kids when they're upset, they want to sit on your lap. Just encourage a different positive behavior, like sitting, tapping on the floor, and encouraging them to sit close to you. And just engaging in extended hugging and tickling, like I said, not allowed. And then kissing, obviously, a kid, even if it is on the cheek. And avoiding inappropriate touch demonstrates that we genuinely care for the children in our church. And it also demonstrates that we take our job seriously as their leaders, and that we would never do anything to compromise the reputation of ourselves, the church, or the gospel. Bullying guidelines. Bullying is common in communities, schools, and is even prevalent in clubs and churches and camps. And so the Park Church has a zero tolerance policy for bullying, which means we can't have bullying happen and we need to stop it. Kids have the right to a caring, respectful, and safe church environment. And so we need to take action to prevent it and stop the bullying from happening. If you see it, stop it. And this requires us to really pay attention to what is going on around us. We need to be paying attention to the conversations that are happening around the tables and conversations that are happening within groups of kids. And so obviously try not to do the bullying yourself, and in situations where you're trying to help kids that are in a situation where bullying is occurring, we have to try not to choose sides. Again, be aware of what's going on. Keep an eye on the kids, pay attention, and report it to the pastor on site. And those sorts of things will also will have to be recorded on an incident report form, and the pastor on site will then notify the parents on the situation. Technology guidelines. So all of our computers within the church are placed in open, visible areas, and internet filters will be used on our internet. And that is true, and that is one reason we really try not to give out our internet password. It also helps kids and youth stay off their personal devices during ministry times. And we ensure accountability by using username and password systems on all our computers and devices that are at the church. So not just anyone can go up and to the computer and log in. And we try to avoid using online networking to communicate, like Facebook or, Instagram, all of those things. Communication outside of scheduled programs should only be done with a parent or guardian's knowledge and written approval. If a ministry personnel or volunteer needs to communicate through email, it's encouraged that they send a copy to the parent as well. Sometimes it's just best to send it right to the parent, having them inform their child of the event or information. Photography. For every program, a photo release waiver is signed by parents. If a parent doesn't agree to have their photo taken, you will be made aware as a program leader, but the best practices are only take photos if a ministry leader tells you, never take photos of kids and then post it on your personal social media, and especially never tag them with names. This is especially important for kids with custody issues, and sometimes we don't know kids' situation as they walk into our programs, and so that's why we take this seriously, and we encourage you to put your phone away anyways during ministry times and only take photos when a ministry lead asks you to. So these are some of the steps of how we implement our protection plan. Like I said before, if you ever want a copy of our protection plan policy, please let me know and I can make that available to you. Just a light read. All volunteers are supposed to attend the mandatory training seminar, which happens every year in September, and that includes our emergency response plan and this child protection training. This happens once a year, and we just ask that you make every effort to be there. If you aren't able to attend in person, you will at least be sent like this video, a online copy of our child protection training, because it's just very important that every kids volunteer gets this training. And then all volunteers will complete the screening process that the Park Church requires before being put in a position of trust. And lastly, security checks are to be renewed every 3 years. Those are those police information checks. As we conclude our training today, I just want to read a verse found in Micah. It says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God?" Micah 6:8. This is one of my favorite verses, and to do justice is one thing that God requires of us, and that relates well to keeping our kids and our vulnerable people here at the Park Church safe. And so thank you for valuing the safety of kids and recognizing the importance of this training and taking the time to watch this. If you have watched this video, please let me know. I am going to include a link in the description box of this video. It leads you to a Google form. And it just lets me know that you've watched this, you can have completed it, and I can put that you've completed this training on your volunteer file that we have to keep permanently. So once again, thank you. Take care.